So it's Earth Week, or it's Earth Day on April 22nd. And so it's kind of Earth Week. And so what we wanted to do is introduce you to one of our new partners, Brooke Lucy from the Bluebird Grain Farms up in Washington State. I'm Sabrina Ironside. I'm the owner operator of the Gourmandise School here in downtown Santa Monica. And so Brooke, you are the owner operator of the Bluebird Grain Farms. And what Bluebird Grain Farms is the source for some of the finest 100% certified organic ancient whole grains, fresh milled flour, and handcrafted blends that are farmed under regenerative practices. So thanks for chatting with us today. Brooke, you believe that people deserve access to clean, pure food, and you take pride in growing and offering organic ancient grain products that require minimal water and high nutritional value. So that's a little top line on Bluebird Grains, but tell us about you and Bluebird Grains, what Bluebird Grain Farms is, and how you got involved in this.
Yeah, well, thanks, Sabrina, for having me. And I am so excited to share with you about our vertically integrated farm business. We started really over 20 years ago because we could not access any organic grain, any organic grains in one of the largest wheat producing states in the country. So most of Eastern Washington, many of you may or may not know, but it's the Palouse region. It exports most of its grain out of the Port of Seattle and Port of Portland. And 20 years ago, we were deeply involved in the organic food movement and realized that people cannot access fresh organic grains grown in our state. And that really queued up a question like, why can't we access this food that is really a staple grain? And just think about all the wheat that is in our lives, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, it's a staple food. And we started thinking and researching growing organic grains. My husband had a land reclamation business where he would go into fallow farmland and bring it back to its native state. So he would work for large, government agencies, really reclaiming the land. And we used some grains in these rotations to build the soil, not as a crop, but just to build soil so that we could get land back into its native habitat. And so he was kind of growing some grains at the time, and we thought, wow, we can't even access the grain in this state, which is, this huge producer of mostly soft white wheat. So we decided to grow out a few crops of just wheat, and felt like, wow, there's, we can grow it here. Let's learn more about grain and wheat production. And the more we did a deep dive, the more we realized, well, wheat is a staple food, but we couldn't even find any ancient wheats being grown in the country at the time. There was spelt actually had been grown, or what was being grown at the time. And that technically used to be an ancient wheat. Sadly, most spelt has been hybridized for industrial use. So even spelt wasn't truly an ancient wheat. So we just discovered that ancient wheats had a very high nutrition ratio. And because they weren't really being offered in the United States, primarily they had been imported from mostly Italy, we felt like there was a niche market that we should look into. So we got aligned with a professor at Montana State University that had been saving these seeds, these ancient wheat seeds, for his 30-year tenure at Montana State. He had actually a whole ancient grain program going at the time, and he was retiring. And the Montana didn't want to continue their program. And so we worked with him on some of the varieties that he had brought over from Mesopotamia, Northern Africa. And we started doing trials in our fields just to see how they grew, what they were like. And to make a very long story short, we ended up starting with a small amount of seed, emmer and einkorn, multiple varieties. We started doing these trials and realized that these grains were so incredibly resilient. And there's a reason why they had, endured the test of time, because of their resiliency. They have a super deep root system. They grow really tall. And when you put them in a organic farm system, the biomass from these grains, when it's put back in the soil, grown organically, just keeps building soil. And so we over many years, we built our seed stock, built our processing facility, because these ancient wheats come with a very tight husk. And that's really the reason why they came out of favor for production in the US or anywhere in the world, really, is because that tight husk requires another process. And in the United States, we've been so focused on industrialized agriculture, so grain for mass production, so thousands of acres. And wheat has been really bred primarily for industrial use. It's for the Wonder Bread of America and the bread basket. So high yields, easy threshing. There's a host of attributes that grain has been, bred for, and yet these ancient wheats fell out of favor because they're low yielding. They require extra processing, but when you compare the nutritional value, it's like 3 to 4 times the nutritional value of common wheat.
So tell us what is an ancient grain for those who don't know. What is it? Like, you hear ancient grain a lot. What does that mean?
Yeah. And that's been a huge point of my job in my business, is educating people. And so we define an ancient wheat as a grain that has not been hybridized for industrial production, and it still contains its genetic, like the genetic integrity that it started with thousands and thousands of years ago. And that husk, I talked about that tight husk. Well, that is a great visual indicator of an ancient wheat versus a common wheat. It hasn't been bred to thresh out of the husk at harvest. So when we harvest the grain, it still has its tight husk. And that husk is just its evolutionary attribute of kind of how it has evolved over time to really protect its seed. So an ancient wheat is there's varying research on how old these ancient wheats are. I've found research that goes back like 17,000 years. Some of these grains are traced back to like caveman. They've found them in they've found seeds in one of the person, or they dug a guy out of a glacier like 3 years ago, and they found einkorn seed with this skeleton. They found genetic material, so it was kind of the beginning of grain and the beginning of culture. And so the emmer and einkorn, einkorn is the oldest ancient wheat. It started, like I said, about 17,000 years ago. And then about 5,000 years after einkorn had developed, emmer started to evolve. And so these two grains are really the foundation of all the genetic material to modern wheat.
Emmer and einkorn.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So you're talking about hybridized grains. Can you tell us what's hybridized grains and what does that mean to us?
Yeah. So hybridized grain is a grain that's been intentionally crossbred by humans to combine like traits from different varieties. So just a simple explanation is farmers or breeders take 2 different wheat types and they cross them to create a new variety with specific traits that usually result in higher yields or easier processing or disease resistance. So it's like intentionally breeding grains together. So it's not genetically modified. That's a whole different thing. And the difference between these hybridized grains and ancient grain and these ancient wheats, emmer and einkorn, the varieties that we have, is that our varieties have not been hybridized or crossbred for higher yields or easier processing.
And so what does that mean? So what's the benefit to the consumer for that?
For a non-hybridized or a wheat? Well, what we have found, or what we are seeing, is just the nutritional profile of these ancient wheats are just like so different than modern grains. They have all of these trace minerals that are not in ancient wheats. So manganese, zinc, iron, the protein content is really high. So for example, our einkorn, a whole grain einkorn wheat, has a 9 grams of protein per serving. So that compares to like a quinoa or other ancient grains. Most modern wheat has, maybe 4 to 5 grams, maybe, depending on the type of grain. And this is a really deep topic, and I don't want to, we could go into a deep dive with wheat. I think at the end of the day, when you think about, our American food system, and that farming, agriculture, and then delivering a product for mass production, and thinking about wheat going into Wonder Bread, right?
Right.
They've come up with wheat that basically fits the formula of that bread that's going to sell. And part of that formula is the production, high yields, right? Easy threshing, easy processing. And so this is, it goes into a big topic of just how food is grown in America. Our company and our farm business wanted to rewrite the script because we believe people deserve access to nutritious food. These ancient varieties just happen to have the nutrition that these newer varieties don't have. And we feel like it's important to preserve these grains because so much of corporate America owns the grains that are in your Wonder Bread. Most of the wheat on the shelf, so anything that contains wheat that's on a grocery shelf, it's usually 4 to 5 varieties of grain, and that's it.
Wow.
Just not going to get the diversity. So we feel like bringing these ancient wheats into the market, it's just about diversity in your diet, like mixing it up, having something that's a little more nutritious. And then we can speak to this later, but the versatility of use of these grains is crazy. So you asked me, is wheat flour? Well, flour, a lot of, wheat flour is made from wheat, whole grain wheat. The wheat family is one of the largest plant families. So there's hundreds of thousands of varieties of wheat, right? So it's a hefty topic. The wheat that's used for mass production and that goes into, back to this Wonder Bread concept, like I said, it's generally, just a few varieties that are used, and those varieties of grains are owned by corporate America. They're not owned by the farmer. And so there's other that creates a host of other issues. For example, there's a lot of conversation in the wheat world about glyphosate. And a lot of wheat, a lot of farmers use a lot of chemicals to grow wheat, not only to deal with the weeds, but these private varieties that are used, these private wheat varieties that are planted, require heavy inputs of chemicals to be grown.
So they require the chemicals now.
They require, because of the system that they're grown on. So this goes back to the system, the amount of chemical inputs that are going into our food, and the nut that is the little nugget of information that I am so passionate about, that people really need to understand, is all of those chemicals that are sprayed on those grains, they are not washed off. They are never washed off. So when you are buying a non-organic wheat product or any grain product for that matter, and it's not certified organic, those chemicals, like, you can't wash it off wheat and then mill it into flour because it can't get wet, right? So those chemicals just get put into our systems. And
so it's like the hardier, those ancient grains that are hardier, it sounds like they're stronger or something, is how you're describing them. They almost are more resistant to the reason that people are spraying for pesticides. Are they more resistant to the bugs and the things that would hinder growth?
So a lot of that resistance, I mean, that's there's a lot of factors there, because it's how a farm system is managed. If the soil is depleted, you're gonna get pests, you're gonna get weeds when your soil is depleted.
So it's all about the soil too. That's a huge part of it.
Exactly. The soil is a factor in the management systems that farms assume. But for the most part, yes, these ancient wheats are very resilient, and back to that husk wheat, it keeps bugs from getting in. It keeps lots of different rust. It's very resilient, and it doesn't require a lot of water to be grown. So there are factors,
which is great for the environment too. So right. And you talked about glyphosate. For those who don't know, what is glyphosate? Tell us what glyphosate is.
Oh gosh.
I don't have to, not just like in general terms, no deep dive necessarily.
So glyphosate is it's a widely used herbicide. It's a chemical designed to kill weeds. So it's used by farmers to control unwanted plants in fields. It's commonly used as an ingredient in Roundup, and it blocks a key plant enzyme, so the plant can't grow and eventually dies. So it kills, it targets specific weeds. And it has been used to help increase efficiencies in large scale farming. And it's often used with crops bred to tolerate GMO crops like corn and soy. So there are lots of concerns, that of the residue in the food, like I spoke to previously, and there's a ongoing debate about the health risks and regulations. And it's been banned in most countries. Like Europe, it's been banned. It's owned by Bayer, which I find interesting.
A pharmaceutical company,
company. So you get sick, and then we've got the drugs to cure you, so anyway, a whole nother topic.
Okay. And then, but again, the soil, you use certified organic practices, but you also practice regenerative farming. And so tell us what regenerative, everybody basically knows what organic is, but what is regenerative farming? That is coming into the mainstream conversation now. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So regenerative farming is, it's an approach to agriculture that focuses on restoring soil health and improving the ecosystem, not just producing crops. It really, some key practices are building healthy living soil. So through cover crops, composting, minimal tillage, increasing biodiversity. So really understanding like what crops are going to increase the diversity of the farm. And it might not just be where you're farming, but all the wetlands around the farmland. Keeping the soil covered and protected year round. So always having something in the soil growing. And then integrating these natural systems to reduce any synthetic inputs. Now, we are certified organic, so we don't use any synthetic inputs. And our primary goal on our farm is that anything that we build soil is created on the farm, which is all about that biomass from our grains go back into the soil. We do intensive cover cropping system, and really focusing on helping store carbon in the soil. So that's a climate benefit. Increasing water retention. So when you have healthy soil, you've got that, you're more resilient to drought, and then it really supports the long-term viability of the farm.
Why should people buy regenerative then? So what makes a difference to the consumer for buying regenerative?
Well, it's really about, so the consumer, I know we all feel like one individual doesn't have any impact, but the reality from my standpoint as a farm and a food brand is that when consumers start demanding from their stores or from their buyer that they want these healthier practices, that is what's going to move the needle. And what regenerative, when we look at the regenerative practices, let me back up. So when we're talking about climate change, the number one contributor to the biggest contributor to climate change is farming, poor farming practices. There's a lot of issues in there that I'm not going to get into. In the United States, out of all the farmland that we grow on, hundreds of thousands of acre, only 1% is organic.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Right? So we need consumers to start prioritizing not just regenerative, but I believe organic regenerative. Right? Because you are going to force farms to, you are going to create a system that gives farms a reason to grow and produce food a certain way so that they have a place to sell their food.
Right. Because if nobody's demanding it, nobody's buying it, and then it just sits there. If you grow it and nobody buys it, there's no purpose. So the demand is key.
Exactly. It's the environmental impact, and the thing that's so hard with humans is we want change like tomorrow. And you're talking about soil health and changing this climate conversation, to a better future. We're talking like, we got to look at this on a 100-year scale. What can we do today to start building a better future for our climate, for our health? And it truly does start in the soil. And we have the knowledge base. We have the, I believe we have the supply chain. We need to start inspiring the consumer to begin demanding this so that it creates change from the ground up, literally.
Yeah, right. I know. I recently watched the documentary Kiss the Ground and Common Ground.
Yeah.
Did you watch those?
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, it just really so well explained it to the consumer and how what's going on with the soil is going to affect the entire planet. So it was fascinating. So it's something that I think if everybody can get a chance to watch it would be so valuable. And then you can change purchasing behavior and change demand and then affect it for the long run. As a cooking school, that's what we want to do. That's the role that we want to play, is as we're a recreational cooking school, and people are coming through our doors every day taking classes just to learn how to cook and have fun. But this is where we get a chance to have this captive audience for 3 hours, and can we share this information with them and let them take it away? And it's like sometimes, when we're talking about it, it's like a little light bulb that goes off in their head, and when they see something that has this impact, and when they hear this information and they can understand the significance and the impact that it has, it can go back and change purchasing behavior. So it's just one student at a time, and so that's what we're hoping to do, and that's why we wanted to bring partners like you on board to participate in this with us. And we have Starwalker Farms is our beef partner, and their regenerative organic farm up in Northern California, and Cho Chocolate is our chocolate partner. They're organic. And so we wanted to, we saw your company, and we were just so excited that you guys agreed to partner with us. And so we use all your flours in our classes, your whole grain flours. Sonora, what is it? Sonora rye, hard red, and hard white in our
Yeah.
baking classes. And when we started talking to you, you're talking, yeah, flour, but they're like grains, and einkorn and emmer. And I'm like, yeah, we need to have more grains in the classes too. So we're excited to explore that with you. And einkorn is not something you hear on a regular basis. So like, tell us what einkorn is and how do you use einkorn? Like, who eats einkorn? What do you do with it?
Yeah, so einkorn is the mother, I call it the mother grain of all wheat. It is the foundational it has the foundational genetic material that literally all modern wheat has come from. So it comes from the Mesopotamia region. The Fertile Crescent is where it started. And it naturally hybridized. Oh, so over the year, over thousands of years, einkorn then bred with another wild grass to create emmer, and so there's this amazing evolution with these ancient wheats. But einkorn is the most primitive ancient wheat, and then comes emmer wheat, and the beauty about these two ancient wheats, both emmer and einkorn, is the versatility. And so because they are very simple grains, a simple chromosome structure, einkorn has 14 chromosomes. Emmer has 28 chromosomes. Most modern wheat has over 60 chromosomes. So that shows you just kind of the simplicity of the grain. And then it's got a high protein content, high minerals, but very low gluten. And so the beautiful thing with these two ancient wheats is high protein, low gluten. So we know that the gluten issue is like huge, right?
Right.
And that kind of is that, I believe strongly that is tied to our industrial farming practices and the glyphosate issue.
Right.
I'll put a
and gluten-free and high protein is very popular right now. People are looking for those things.
Totally.
And so
how
do you, so with einkorn, so like, how am I going to eat einkorn tonight or tomorrow for lunch? Like, tell me, like, am I going to make is it like rice in its grain bowl? Like, tell us what your favorite ways to eat it are.
Yeah. So we have we sell our products as a whole grain einkorn. So you cook it just like a brown rice. In fact, it doesn't take as long as brown rice. So you cook it like a rice. I'm lazy. I cook it in my rice cooker. And honestly, when you're busy, you have a family, and getting things done, I'm like, boom, push my, one setting, and it's done in 20 minutes. And I use it like a pilaf. I'll saute it with fresh onions and garlic and like fresh asparagus, all seasonal vegetables, with a stir fry. The beauty with both of these ancient grains, both emmer and einkorn, is you cook them and they hold their texture, so they never go mushy. So they're free. So it's a little bit of a, if you're wanting a soft rice, you're not going to get that. You're going to get a little chewy berry. But if you're a vegetarian or a vegan and you want something to chew, einkorn and emmer are great that way because they're toothsome. And then they hold, so you can cook, if you're a busy family, you can cook a pound up and then use it throughout the week. Throw it into your salad as a grain bowl. Throw it into a soup when you're making chicken soup to add more protein. There's lots of variety.
We're starting to do meal prep classes here, and so that would be perfect to add into the routine. So yes, good idea. Yeah, with regards to flour, I mean, there's so many different types of flour. Like, what's the difference between AP flour and the flours that you sell?
Yes. Yeah. Well, the difference between an all-purpose flour or AP flour is that the all-purpose flour has been refined. So it's only the germ and the bran has been extracted. It goes through a milling process where they take out the germ and the bran, and the germ and the bran are like it's the what makes a seed sprout, right? It's got all the nutrients in a grain, and that is kind of where all the good stuff is, the nutrients are. AP flour, it's refined, so it's taken out, and usually synthetic, depending on the company and the brand. The synthetic things are, like niacin is put back in to give it some nutritional quality. But the all-purpose flour is generally used for, it's flour that it's like very dependable. You can always rely on it for, a certain type of performance. Whole wheat flour, nothing has been extracted. The entire grain is in the flour. So we take the whole grain and we just mill it. We grind it. And the germ, the bran, the endosperm, all the parts of the seed are in the flour. And so we don't have to add anything back. I mean, by law, flour has to have a certain type of nutritional a certain type of nutrition in order to be a food, right? So you see synthetic inputs put back in, like I spoke to, like niacin. With whole wheat flour, you don't need that because the grain already has that by nature. So the entire grain is milled. We don't sift it. Now, that said, it's with the bran, the germ, and the endosperm in whole wheat, it absorbs moisture. And so there's a little bit different, you need to have a little bit different baking ratios of when you're adding water or liquid to your recipes.
Right. So you're cooking and baking, you have to understand that. And so adjust your recipes accordingly, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
And, in a very simplified version, whole wheat needs a little more hydration and more gentle handling, whereas AP flour is lighter, softer. It doesn't require the gentle handling. And AP flour has a longer shelf life, so it contains less oil. Whereas whole grain flour, it does have a shorter shelf life because the natural oils are in the germ and the bran. So I really like to encourage, hey, if you just normally use AP flour and you want to start by, experiencing some of these flavors,
right.
And just start adding a little tiny bit of whole grain flour to your recipe. You don't really need to modify until you get up to more than a half a cup of whole wheat flour. Then you might need to modify your recipe, but just add a little whole grain, and then you're going to just start experiencing the flavor and the freshness, and the
nutrition.
And the nutrition, yes.
Right.
All the different varieties of grains that we have really lend themselves to different types of baked goods. So, for example, our hard red wheat is a heritage wheat. The difference between heritage and ancient, well, the heritage grain has been hybridized, but it was developed over 80 years ago. So it hasn't been hybridized for mass production. It's more been hybridized in a certain region where farms have been utilizing it to grow in a certain region. And so they don't have the intensity of the hybridization that requires these chemical inputs. And so, for example, like our hard red wheat flour is amazing in breads, adding flavor to any baked goods. It's a little bit coarser grind specifically for bread baking. At Bluebird Grain Farms, we deeply, deeply care about the health of the environment and the health of the people. And ultimately, using our products is a great opportunity to just bring a little bit of nutrition, a little bit of a flavor, and really to support these farms that are deeply invested. I mean, we've got 20 years of investment of growing our grains, maintaining the seed stock. And so by trying these grains and bringing these grains into your life, you're not only supporting your health, but you're also supporting a system that is environmentally sustainable. And that's really important right now.
Yeah. That's wonderful. So
I
better health, better taste, and great for the environment, which is what we're talking about this week with Earth Week. And
exactly.
so, yeah.
And I just,
And
Sabrina, I'd like to give a call out too to you and your school, because for us as a farm, you know, at the end of the day, I can talk till I'm blue in the face, but sometimes people don't know how to use it, what to do with it. And it really takes experimenting, getting the education. And so that's why I love working with you guys, is you are boots on the ground,
boots on the ground.
sharing the information and showing people how to use these grains. And what I find is all you need to do is taste it. You need to taste, people just need to taste it. And we're smart people. People have rice cookers, you know, just get the little bit of knowledge of how to integrate some of these grains into your lives. And it's like, boom, a whole nother universe.
Right. Well, we're super excited to work with you. Please come down soon from Washington and join us here. Come take a class with us and have a meal with us. And we're so grateful for what you guys are doing and the impact that you're having. So.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Happy Earth Day.
Thanks, you too. Happy Earth Day. Okay. All right. Yeah.